welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, the 2nd of February, our first podcast coming to you in the second month of 2020. Apologies for missing last week, but we are well and truly back for this one, covering everything to do with League 1 and 2. As always, it's been an absolutely hectic week. We've had midweek fixtures, we've had the transfer deadline day, we've had FA Cup furore with Shrewsbury and Liverpool. And we've got to cover it all in the next hour or so. So let's crack on with it. This podcast is sponsored by Man v Fat. You can find out more about what they're doing at manvfatfootball.org. Really good way of getting men to look after their health in a social environment, playing football, losing weight and having fun doing it. So really good scheme and a really good group of people doing that. So make sure you check them out, and we again thank them for our sponsorship. We are really urging people to jump on board our Patron campaign. Appreciate those that have already done so. Dickie is the latest fan to climb on board, so thank you for that. Really appreciate your support there. It makes a massive difference to what we will be able to do with this podcast and indeed with the website going forward. And I'm joined by my co-hosts Ed and Chris again. And we're going to start this week, before we jump straight into the action in League One, just by passing a comment, I think, on Billy Kee, a striker who has been inspirational for Accrington Stanley, getting them promoted with his goals. Just a wonderful man, and who has really shone a light on the seriousness of mental health issues. And Ed, I think you want to say something about this, because he has really, to retire from the game he loves, it does show just how serious the condition he's suffering has been, and how important it is that we all look after our mental health and indeed the mental health of each other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly sad what's happened, but you've got to think about him and how much of a role model he now is for hundreds and thousands of people, not just in football, but in all aspects of life with that. And regarding him as a player, I'd probably argue he's been one of the most iconic EFL strikers of the last 10 years or so. I think with the way he's played, what he's obviously done with Accrington, he was a Burton Albion player as well for 2 years, so I saw him a lot, and his style of play suits this League 1, League 2 level so well, and he's so effective at pretty much all the clubs he's been at, and he's going to be a massive loss to the game.
He is indeed. We wish him and his family all the best for the future, and genuinely hope that he recovers well from his condition, and hopefully we'll see him in some capacity again, maybe as an ambassador going forward for both Accrington and for mental health issues within the game. So good luck, Billy. You've been an inspiration to many already. I'm sure you'll continue to be so going forward in the future. Right, let's jump in, and we'll start our coverage this week, as always, in League One. League One. So we had double games this week. We had the midweek fixtures. Let's just talk a little bit before we do get into the nitty gritty. Shrewsbury didn't knock Liverpool out. They came back to get a replay against Liverpool in the FA Cup. And, Liverpool have always been this team of the people. They've always been this team followed by a group of fans, who are considered by many to be the salt of the earth. Maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but however you look at them, Liverpool have been a people's club for many years. They're about to win a title, no doubt about that. It was almost sealed. And yet, when they drew this game, they're forced to play a replay. It's part of the competition rules. Jurgen Klopp straight away comes out talking spiel about how he's going to respect the winter break. He's not going to manage the team. He's going to play the kids. They've moved it so that it can't be on TV. And they've now said that Shrewsbury have to get their tickets from the Everton ticket office because they don't want to open their one. Chris, you live in the city. I mean, that just comes across... I can't really swear on this podcast, but that comes across as just outrageous behaviour towards a fellow professional football club.
I think it's outrageous, and I'm personally very disappointed to see it. I have a lot of respect for Jurgen Klopp. I've lived in the city whilst Liverpool have won the Champions League and played some really impressive football, and I've got a bit of a soft spot for them. And so to see them treat a lower league club like this, I find really, really disappointing. I mean, we saw the team that they played at Shrewsbury. It wasn't their strongest team. but they played some very good players. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with them rotating so some of their fringe players get a game in this sort of competition, but to completely disregard it, to say you're going to put out your youth team or your under-23 team or whichever team he wants to play and not manage them yourself as the team's manager, I think is a disgrace, especially when you see the way that the Premier League put pressure on EFL clubs during the EFL Trophy in the last few seasons and sort of encourage sanctions on them if they rotated their squad too much. I think it's completely hypocritical.
Yes, and it's going to cost Shrewsbury a figure around £700,000 in lost revenue.
In potential money they could have made, and fair play to Everton for standing up and letting them collect tickets from there. The fact Liverpool won't even do them that courtesy. I'm sorry, you can have your issues with the FA Cup or FA Cup replays. I will disagree with you as much as I can, but to disrespect the fans of another team like that is completely outrageous.
Yeah, disgraceful stuff from a club that really should know better, you feel. But anyway, not to start this one on a too negative and sort of vitriol. Let's move on to some of the better things that happened yesterday in the Football League. And Coventry picking up a 2-1 win at Bristol Rovers means they've gone 10 unbeaten. They've done some subtle, nifty business. Ryan Giles joining them on, I think it was on deadline day. He's a really good left-sided player, obviously recalled by Wolves and then sent back out. So really good bit of business there. Looking strong. Mark Robins doing an excellent job. Didn't really lose any key players. Ed, Coventry surely will be, considering the season that they've had playing at St Andrews, this has just been a sensational run they're on.
No, it's just been brilliant, hasn't it? That last defeat was Shrewsbury, I believe, middle of December. Yeah, that's a fantastic run, and they've got that cup replay against their tenants, as we call it on Birmingham, which
enjoy that.
I've got a bit of an interest in, to be honest. That'd be quite fun. I've got a Birmingham City runs in my family, so that's going to be quite a fun one. The win at the weekend was really good. Good to see Jamie Allen get that first goal as well, obviously being a Burton boy, knowing how good he can be. Finally looks like he's off the mark, and hopefully that's more we see of him. But yeah, just overall, that midfield at Coventry is so good. I love that midfield. There's so many good options in it.
Do you think they're good enough to beat the big teams? This run that they're on, you argue that the best, I'd probably look at the best result, obviously going to Wycombe, beating them 4-1, but also going to Fleetwood, which is a notoriously difficult place to go, and getting a point. That's pretty good. But you've got a few big games coming up shortly with a game against Portsmouth at home and Rotherham at home. These will be, you sort of think, the acid test, don't you, for an automatic promotion push?
Oh, absolutely, definitely. I'm looking down here, and then 25th of February they host Rotherham. They then host Sunderland a week later after that, and then Ipswich away. So you're looking at Rotherham, Sunderland and Ipswich in back-to-back games. And if you come out of that keeping this run going, or as good as they can, with how tight this league is at the minute, you really got to look at them and think they could end up in the top two.
We'll see. They're the side we like. Good recruitment team, good players, wonderful midfield, and going very strong as it stands. Ipswich, though, not doing quite as well. I mean, they've just been on a run of, I think that's 5 games without defeat prior to these losses to both Rotherham and a very poor performance, it has to be said, yesterday against Peterborough, 4-1 defeat at home. They've got Sunderland away next as well. I'm not sure whether, they didn't particularly inspire me with any business done during the transfer window. Again, Ed, is this a team that we feel is just starting to creak, or are we being a bit harsh?
Difficult to call, really. These are, the last 2 have been quite tough games, haven't they? Home to Peterborough, who have suddenly turned around, and then Rotherham are obviously top of the pile. It's a really difficult one to call with it, I think, personally.
Like, you look at fluidity that they had, I think, earlier in the season, having watched their games. The wins that they're getting at the moment on the performances are a little bit more of a slug.
They're lacking confidence, I think. I think we touched on that a few weeks ago, and you look at their performance against Peterborough yesterday, and they look completely bereft of confidence. And the two games they've had this week, one against Peterborough, one against Rotherham, there you feel the tests of their promotion credentials, and they've not come out well from them.
They haven't indeed. Peterborough, on the other hand, 4 wins in a row. didn't lose Ivan Toney in the transfer window. Marcus Maddison went to Hull. Not a surprise. He's been, for a long...
On loan?
Yeah, on loan. That was a bit strange. There must be some sort of option for that to be made permanent.
I was confused for Peterborough's finances because I believe he's out of contract at the end of the season, I think.
Yeah, I thought he was as well, I see. So I'm not sure how that's going to quite work. I wonder if there's an obligation to buy.
A loan fee or something.
There must be. There must be some sort, because, Peterborough won't let him go without sort of having that financial gain. But, I mean, they're not... They'll miss him because he's a great player, but they're not going to be... They've not become overly reliant on him this season because they've got Dembele...
And Sammy Schmodix.
Coming in, who's
phenomenal at the minute.
Do you not think he looks better than he has for a long time? Because, I mean, obviously at Colchester, he was always a good player, but he seems to be like the move to Bristol City and maybe 6 months playing with a better quality of player. He comes back to Peter and he looks even better than he did before.
He looks brilliant. I think going to Bristol City long term will work out for him, but he obviously wasn't quite getting the amount of game time that people would have wanted. So he's dropped down a division to a team that really suits his play, and he's just flourishing at the minute.
Yeah, I did enjoy that comment on Quest last night. They've got the front three of STD.
Yeah,
it's an infectious attacking.
Terrible
setup. God,
that's outrageous. But very good team and doing extremely well at the moment, pushing hard for, like many teams, in this tight race for automatic promotion. Wickham still faltering. They lost yesterday at MK Dons, who are becoming very formidable at Stadium NK. You have to give Russell Martin some credit for that, because I wasn't too sure whether that appointment was going to work out. I think a lot of people saw it as being certainly a risk, and he's done a very good job. Obviously, losing to Sunderland was disappointing, but actually they beat Oxford, Portsmouth, Bristol Rovers, Rochdale and Wickham there. So they've had 5 victories in their last 6 home games, and that has pushed them onto 31 points. That gap between themselves and the bottom 3 is now 9 points. So you'd think that's, even at this early stage, only going to get bigger. It's pretty difficult to see gaps of that nature when teams are out of form, like Tranmere and Southend. I mean, Southend obviously winning yesterday, shock, absolute shock. But they the points gap is going to be absolutely massive for those teams to make up, and I would be quite surprised to see probably any of those 3 escape now come the end of the season. I mean, there's question marks over whether Tranmere can catch Wimbledon or not, but I don't know, guys.
It's suddenly got vaguely interesting, though, hasn't it? I mean, it's gone from Southend looking completely dead and buried to, all right, it's 12 points. It's a very, very big ask, but they've just won a couple of games. They've just won a couple of games, and it's the hope that kills you. And I think there's maybe a slither of hope.
Ooh. Do you know, over the last 5 games, they're 7th in the form table, Southend. They're taking 8 points. They're taking 8 points from 5 games.
That's ridiculous.
That puts them 7th.
7th in the form table over the last 5 games.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's very good. Credit to Sol Campbell.
Football genius.
Well, I wonder. I was thinking this morning. Like, he's surely looking to prepare them for a season in League 2 next year. They didn't do much in the transfer window. They're probably starting to think, how can we rebuild this to get a consistently...
They released that weird statement as well, didn't they? That we've looked at Sol Campbell's targets, then we're looking to sign them, and then didn't sign them.
Mm.
It was really weird, like a window closes but a door opens or something.
I did like Southend Echo writer Chris Phillips' comment on Twitter on deadline day, saying it's transfer deadline day, or as we call it at Southend, Friday.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite good. So
that's about right.
Yeah, good to see them get a home win though. Those fans have been suffering hard all season, and yes, well, speaking of transfer windows, deadline day was terrible. Probably the worst deadline. In fact, I think we should ban transfers in January.
Oh no!
Yes.
Here we go.
What do you mean? Here we go. This is outrageous. I think there should be. And anyway, clubs wearing red and white stripes are offensive to me from now on. I think we shouldn't be allowing them in the Football League. If there's any team...
Can anyone mute James's mic?
No, you can't. Yeah. Luckily, it doesn't have that option over this connection. Thank you very much. But obviously, losing Shandon Baptiste and Tariq Fosu for piddly money, essentially. Or I'm sure there is some add-ons. I'm sure
It's
there
£2
are.
million, wasn't it?
3 million quid. It's outrageous. Outrageous. I mean, you look at Shannon Baptiste, who is the next. I don't know who he's the next. I mean, he's so good. I mean, he's going to play for England, I would imagine.
He's the next Messi.
Well, it's a different style of player to Messi. He's, deep-lying playmaker. But I mean, he's such a good player. He's one of our own as well, and he's no longer one of our own. Unfortunately, he's a bee, an insect that is insufferable at the best of times. I'm going to get wildlife activists now attacking me on Twitter.
Yeah, I'll come for you.
But anyway, we lost 2 key players. We didn't replace them on deadline day. However, we had done some good business early in the window that clearly has put us in good stead, because Marcus Brown coming back, he's one of these players who is impetuous, flamboyant, and pretty rubbish wherever he's been, except under Carl Robinson at Oxford United, and that'll suit me fine, which means that we can probably keep him for a bit longer, hopefully, come the end of the season. He was superb against Blackpool yesterday. Unlucky, I don't think he got given that first goal. I think it went to Sykesy, but he certainly claimed the second one. Lovely curl finish into the top corner. And although Gary Medine will wonder how he missed that chance right at the end, I think Oxford will probably feel they did enough to win that game. A 2-1 win to keep us in that playoff hunt, despite having our players robbed from us late in the transfer window.
Robbed in exchange for good money.
That's not good money. Well, I mean, it's good money for a League One club, I suppose. But when you're looking at a player like Shannon Baptiste, I'm sure we could have got more for him, because I think there will be, but
it kind of sums up how good Brentford are with recruitment, though, aren't they? That we'll probably see these two flourishing with them in the next year or so.
Well, as long as they sell him for that.
Yeah, as long as they sell him. Same with James Tarkowski as well. They signed him for peanuts from Oldham, paid off the sell-on clause, and sold him for a couple of million.
They're not doing that to Oxford. No, I think we should force.
You've got a solid owner, haven't you?
Yeah, we had 15 million. I think you should sell Shannon Baptiste for, and we'll get a nice cut of that in the future. But he's certainly a very good player. Wish him all the best at Brentford. He certainly applied himself well in his all too brief a time at Oxford. But at least we got the win, and at least we have pushed ourselves hard and back close to the playoffs after a little blip with defeats to the likes of Rotherham and Doncaster. So Portsmouth, guys, come on, let's get your take on that, because
Chris, a win.
Well, what a win, but also what a run they're on. They haven't lost at home all season. No one, I don't think, apart from no one in the EFL has done that, and I doubt there's many teams in the Premier League, perhaps apart from
Liverpool.
I think it is. I think it is just Liverpool, actually.
Yeah, City have been beaten.
And they've been by United, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Portsmouth, up into the playoffs, a run of form which has seen them win 4 in a row, go 5 unbeaten. They were. They were all over Sunderland at times. I mean, there was a lot of complaints from Sunderland fans about the referee at half time. But
I messaged Richard about it and just said it's a bit of a let off for you guys. I said, but Portsmouth thoroughly deserved that win. And it certainly looked that way to me on the highlights. They were sublime.
And this is from a club that fans were hugely on the back of Kenny Jackett earlier in the campaign. Seems ridiculous now when they're one of the sides that you look at with the strength in that squad and the form that they're in. They're only 3 points off second. I mean, that's how close it is. They're in 6th, but they're 3 points off second.
With a couple of games in hand.
Yeah, that can make a massive difference. I mean, essentially, they could be level with Rotherham on points if they win those 2 games in hand. And the way they're playing wouldn't put it past them. Ed, do you fancy them? Do you think they've the team to watch? Are they more likely to encroach on the top 2 than Coventry, for example?
You have got to fancy them on the form they're on, haven't you? And you look what's coming up next. They go to Tranmere, then they go to Coventry or Birmingham, and then a home game against Shrewsbury. Still in the EFL Trophy, of course, got that semi-final with Exeter. They got Arsenal in the FA Cup at home, which is suddenly a bit of a tempting one considering how good they are at Fratton Park at the minute. But yeah, in terms of the league, how can you not look at them with the form they're on at the moment?
No, wonderful stuff to see. Really good performances as well, and just kept that pressure on those above them with a superb run in the mid to end. Well, January they've not lost a game, and so far February started in that same vein with a very solid 2-0 win over a pretty informed Sunderland side. So they are going strong indeed. And one thing I will mention, because I know obviously Gillingham did not play yesterday, but they did outplay and outmuscle and completely dominate Shrewsbury in the midweek game, which I watched. John Akinde was what they really were lacking, a big, strong, focal point to their attacks. They've got that now. They also picked up Jordan Graham, who was excellent for Oxford last season when on loan from Wolves. They've got him until the end of the season. This could be interesting from the Gills because, I like what they've done business-wise. I think, the gap is 8 points between themselves and the playoff places, so there's a lot of ground to make up. But, Ed, credit to the recruitment team because yet again they've had a decent January window.
Yeah, I was at that Gillingham game as well, and I agree with you completely that Akinde, he's such a presence up top, isn't he? We know that from his days at Lincoln as well, and his hold-up play, I don't think there's many better that do it in the league, honestly. He's so effective up there. And when you've got that sort of midfield diamond that they've got as well playing behind him, people like Ollie Lee, Ben Pringle, or Ben Pearson as I called him earlier on, which was a mistake. But so yeah, you've got him, Stuart O'Keefe as well, and then they're just he fits so well into that system already, and he's only just arrived.
Yeah, I think that was the one piece they're missing. And Roberts looked really good as well, actually. Really sort of industrious forward who will work well, fight for every ball. I think Gillingham have got a potential to shock a few teams now. They've got the strength in depth. They've got some exciting players. I thought Pringle was excellent. Best I've seen him play for some time. Rather a nomadic career of late for him. But
he was superb at Rotherham a few years ago, and then
disappeared kind of thing, didn't he?
Disappeared. He was on loan at Oldham for half a season. Didn't do too much.
No, he sort of had some. Yeah, he had some sort of hit and miss performances on trial. I think, did he go to Grimsby for a bit as well? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Berry rings a bell.
Possibly. But he certainly looked excellent for Gillingham against Shrewsbury, who did not look good at all. They can get the FA Cup magic happening at home against Liverpool, but this season they put in far too many of these languid, non-existent performances, and it's kind of scuppered their campaign because you look at their season now. They're not going to make the playoffs. You'd think they're certainly not going to go down. Their cup is their season now, I'd guess. And a lot of fans really unhappy with the way the performances have gone. I mean, that game against Gillingham, Ed, as you say, you were there. It was hugely disappointing.
It certainly was from their perspective. That first half, they just weren't with it at all. And Gillingham got that 2-goal lead. And yeah, Shrewsbury grew into it a little bit in the game. Second half, I do wonder if that had a bit to do with O'Keefe coming off, but. Gillingham had that 2-goal lead. They were really good. Built that lead and never really looked like giving it up, I would have said. I don't know what your thoughts on it were.
Well, I just thought they were terrible. I mean, first half, I think Jack Bonham could have really gone and sat in the dugout and still Shrewsbury probably wouldn't have scored. I mean, I think Wally maybe hit the post and that was about all they mustered. It was a really poor performance. And, we know what they can do because obviously we saw how attacking they were when they needed to be against Liverpool in that FA Cup game. So hugely underwhelming again in the league. And they've kind of got to accept, I guess, that this is a season of mid-table mediocrity, which some people will be happy with. But I think it's more the performances that the fans are annoyed about rather than the league position. Burton, Ed, can't talk about them, how they've been looking of late. It's Templeton gone, frustration because he's a great player, and losing Boyce as well in the window.
Boyce is a loss. He is a big loss. He's been a fantastic player to the club. I think, he's gone to Hearts. He'll do wonders there. He's already got 2 and 2. I'm keeping a close eye on him, obviously, now. He'll do wonders there, but it means we're going to have Akins up top. And whilst I don't mind that, we are going to have to change how we play because Akins, his touch is not as good as Boyce. He's not quite got the same level of hold-up play. He's a player who needs it a lot more to feet rather than in the air. So we are going to have to play a little less direct with him up there. It will work, I think, long term. We will get goals, but we need to change the way we play. And talking about the game yesterday, sounds like it was probably one of the games of the day, especially with the entertainment that was put on, goals coming quickly together. We take the lead, Rotherham quickly equalise. Start the second half, Rotherham quickly score, and then Burton quickly equalise, and Rotherham end up getting that win and grinding out another result which keeps them on top of the table.
What have you made of Rotherham's form? Because it's been absolutely sensational, hasn't it?
It's been superb. It's been top notch. They had that minor slip up with obviously the game with Peterborough, but other than that, the last I think before that was that one to Rochdale at
21,
home. And
21 points from the last 24 available they've taken.
well,
Not too bad, is it?
in a tight league like this, you can't really complain at that, can you? That's superb.
Superb performances. And I don't know, I thought they did what they needed to do in the window. Nothing spectacular. Curtis Tilt, obviously, an excellent addition. Akiba Delicum as well. I think a player who was hugely impressive with Scunthorpe. Again, one of these guys who hasn't quite got the game time in the Championship, but I think they're a complete team. And the way they're playing, their fans must be absolutely delighted. I know Ian is pleased. His vlog of that Burton game will be out hopefully later today, so you should definitely go and check it out because it was a fantastic game, fantastic match, and another important victory for Rotherham. Bolton obviously beating Tranmere 2-0 yesterday. Tranmere's problems compounded. They did a little bit of business in the window, but again, I just think you look at the squad, Chris. It's a case of been promoted twice in quick succession, and then they're really struggling now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching them last season, and I was surprised when they ended up going up. I think they were very much they got through the playoffs through a late run of form rather than consistently good form. Lost some key players. I think, they've struggled this season. All credit to Bolton yesterday. They looked really good. I was impressed with a couple of signs they made. Key and Brian, the key one for me. But yeah, Tranmere, I don't think their squad's good enough, and they're fortunate that Bolton and Southend have been below them.
Yeah, it's difficult to say. I mean, I thought they'd get out of this, but I don't think their pitch is helping them either, to be honest. I know the pitch is getting a lot of stick, and it's pretty awful.
Their fans gave our pitch stick a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah, well,
you kind of wonder if Tranmere are going to play. I think it's Doncaster on Tuesday at home, and if they don't win that, you do wonder, has the bottom three been decided?
Well, the
it's
thing
getting
you
that
do
way
wonder,
a little bit, isn't it?
the thing with the pitch, this is something that John Sheridan figured out at Oldham very well. If you've got a terrible pitch, you can use that to your advantage.
Teams used to, didn't they? Teams used to do that all the time.
Exactly. If you're playing on it, because that sort of pitch is horrible to play on. You get leggy quickly, the ball's bobbling about for defenders. If you coach your players to work with that rather than use it as an excuse for not winning, you'll pull yourself out of it. You'll shit out it, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, John Beck style, absolutely. There were teams. My dad was always telling me about when FA Cup matches came on. Some teams would flood certain parts of the pitch in the corner flags and just to try and suit their game. But there you go. Lincoln City jumping in for Lincoln, because obviously the defeat at Southend means they've lost 3 in a row after what was a better run of form for them. So it looks like a season where Michael Appleton will be building rather than challenging, and I think that's probably about right, considering, again, like Tranmere, they've had promotions quickly up the league since the Cowleys brought them out of non-league football and back into the EFL. So let put into perspective their rise and their current campaign. I think this is a fairly decent season, and I think they've got a good manager who, given time, will absolutely see this team rise again and flourish, and they'll be far closer, I would think, this time next season to the playoffs than they are currently. The league table is still so tight. It's such an interesting looking league table. You've got Rotherham flying at the top, but they're still only 3 points ahead of Wickham. And like we said, if Portsmouth win their games in hand, they will also have 53 points. Wickham's 50 points from 29 games is still a really good achievement, but their drop in form recently has seen other teams pull within just a couple of points from them. Peter 1 point behind them, though, having played a game more. Ipswich in 4th with 48 points. Coventry 48 points. But again, another side with 2 games in hand. In fact, if they win their 2 games in hand, it would see them overtake Rotherham. How interesting this is all becoming.
Could have mentioned from Darren McAntony, who made that comment, obviously, a few weeks back, and how right he's proven now.
Yeah.
Made that comment about, I resign if we don't finish in the top 6. And I think after that, they won 4 in a row, didn't they? After that defeat.
He looks at his team and he thinks we've got far too much talent in there.
He's great and so arrogant. And
I love him. I love him.
He's an honest chairman as well, though, to be fair to him. Like, as much as he might irk some people with his slightly cocksure stance on things, at the end of the day, he is an honest chairman who's working hard for his club. He talks
he's
about
transparent.
Yeah, he's transparent, and that's all you can ask for of as a fan of an EFL club. You want a chairman to be completely honest with what he's doing.
Yes, we do.
Yes, everyone does it indeed. Portsmouth in 6th, 47 points, with Sunderland, the mighty Oxford, Fleetwood, Doncaster and Burton making up that top half of the table. Sorry, Gillingham, you are in the top half too. Let's make sure we add that in there. Bottom 3 stands at Bolton, Southend, Tranmere. Big points gap, 6 points between Tranmere and Wimbledon. And that's opened up even further to 9 points between Tranmere and MK Dons in 19th. Right, after this, we'll be jumping into League 2.
What does Man v Fat mean to you?
Lose weight and enjoy a game of football.
Mental health, camaraderie.
Friends, football, fat loss.
Reverse my diabetes.
Big, sweaty, fun.
Life-changing football.
Better and healthy lifestyle.
Good competitive sport.
Teamwork, banter and weight loss.
Create a winning mentality to lose fat.
Hard work regime and football.
It means sustainable weight loss.
Don't let the boys down and don't let yourself down.
Man v Fat. Weigh, play, lose, win.
League 2.
And in League 2, Swindon Town, come on, let's talk about them, because in the transfer window, the sneaky Swindon lost Owen Doyle.
Richie Wellens again doing this.
Oh.
Yeah. They lost Owen Doyle, they lost Jerry Yates. They were like, oh, this is our season, our wheels are coming off, we've lost these players. We've got Hallam Hope in from Carlisle. He's a good player. Yes, he is a good player. Well done, signed him. Oh, but we've also just got Jerry Yates back. Oh, well done. Oh, and Owen Doyle. So basically...
on permanent deals.
Yeah, they've just, well, I think Jerry Yates is a loan still, but they've just added Hallam Hope in their transfer window, really. So this Owen Doyle, Jerry Yates thing was just a smoke and mirrors. Outrageous.
Well, Richie Wellens did a very similar thing when we played Portsmouth a few seasons. He goes, oh yeah, Owen Doyle's injured. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. It looks nasty. Up pops Owen Doyle on the team sheet, goes out, scores 2. He loves this sort of thing.
He is. I remember.
Not just a word he says.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he said something like Johnny Lydon was out for the rest of the season, when really he just got a bruised knee or something, So, but they've had a wonderful transfer window. They've not lost any key players. Essentially, they've strengthened.
Added Matt Palmer, didn't they?
Yeah. Good midfielder.
I'm sure he's just going through Simon Corney's good transfer list whilst he was at Oldham and picking them out. Just, Matt Palmer, he sort of disappeared for a couple of years, but he is some player if you can get him going, and I think he'll do so well under Richie Wellens' style of play.
Absolutely.
Oh, he was at Burton, wasn't
he? He was. He came through the Burton youth system, and I was gutted when he left when we were in the Championship, and I can't really believe he's in League 2, to be honest.
No, I mean,
I think he should be playing at a higher level.
I think he probably would have if he hadn't had the injuries in the last couple of seasons, because he's picked up, this season for Bradford, he missed pretty much 3 or 4 months, didn't he? Or 3 months of the season with an injury. So that's scupping him. But he's gone to a team in Swindon where they're playing excellent football. They're creating lots and lots of chances. They're confident. I mean, whether he'll get game time, that's the thing at Swindon, where you've got Grant, Lydon, Doherty, all in that midfield.
I mean, this is the incredible thing with Swindon, though. You look through their team, and there's so many players that if it weren't for a little injury here or whatever there's a lot of players there that could have been Championship quality and could still go on to have Championship careers.
Well, I think Richie Wellens did allude to the fact that he's actually recruited in a way that did take risks in terms of fitness of players. He got guys who he knows have some injury issues historically. But
Doyle and Lydon both have bad injury records, really.
Oh, but unbelievable stuff, and a win against second place Exeter in what was a massive result for them. Obviously, huge. Exeter, they've been so solid. You can't really mock it. I mean, they went out and got Brennan Dickinson in because obviously with the injuries to Jack Sparks out for the season, and they've also lost their other left-sided player whose name escapes me at the moment, but he's going to be out for a little while. So they had to bring in recruitment. And they did well, and I think they've got a very solid squad. However, Gabe Sutton alluded to it on the pod last time we were discussing Exeter, was that they have had a lot of 1-0 wins, great results, relied on their keeper, back-to-back defeats, conceded 5 goals in those 2 games. The next 2 for them at home to Stevenage and Oldham, massive to try and push themselves back in. Well, it will be interesting. Well, let's talk Oldham now, Chris, because the last two matches have been.
I can enjoy it this week.
Well, yeah, I spoke to dear listeners. I spoke to this lad Chris here on the phone yesterday, and it was like I couldn't believe it's Chris Stringer. He sounded completely different. I thought he's either just been heavily medicated, or Oldham have won back-to-back games for the first time since the last Ice Age. And
6 goals.
Yeah. You scored 6 goals in these 2 matches. That's the same amount as you scored in the last 8 combined. I mean, absolutely sensational. But the performances, Chris, come on, because I saw you beat Mansfield in the midweek game, and you outplayed them, and I thought, this is ridiculous football. It's the best I've seen you play for a long time. And then to do that again against another decent side. I mean, Bradford fans, we'll talk about them in a minute, but how nice was that?
It was unbelievable. I mean, I missed the Mansfield game in the week, but I watched the highlights and I talked to you about it, and that sounded fantastic from everyone that I've spoken to. And then went yesterday, and it was, I couldn't believe what I was watching. There were players fighting for the shirt. There was Zach Durnley's first goal. Their defenders slipped. He's run in. We weren't taking gambles like that previously. We've gambled. We've got a goal. Johnny Smith is an unbelievable footballer. Danny Rowe, I mean, he really is one of the best January signings I've seen at Oldham. I think at the moment
it might be the best January signing of this window in the division, because it's very hard to get impactful players. But so far, he's come in and he's changed. Because you've got him, you've got a focal point, and he changes the way your entire game goes.
And it's what I've been calling for all season. He's not a traditional target man, but he's a fantastic hold-up player, and it's what we've needed all season.
No more hiking it to a Zankpo in the channels, eh?
Oh, thank God he's out of the team.
Brilliant stuff. Excellent performance.
Do you know Oldham are now closer to the playoffs than they are to the bottom spot?
Shh, Ed,
don't say it, Ed. Stop.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Don't just.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. That's all. I'll keep quiet. I'm just saying that.
I'll get too excited.
No, he's not. Chris.
I remember my first season doing the podcast where I went, "Oh, Richie Wellens is in. We're on a promotion push." You know what happened? We got relegated, Ed.
Right, I'm keeping quiet.
You're not allowed to say that. Chris's pacemaker doesn't like these sort of things.
Okay.
It reacts badly to that word, so we can't mention
I'm learning.
Are we allowed to say top half finish though, Chris, or is that again on the? Is that the second word banned on the list of not allowed to say Oldham phrases?
I think we need to carefully watch what goes off the field before I can make any predictions like that.
We shall see. But on it, things going extremely well in the last couple of games. Let's talk Bradford though. Not so good. I wrote an article, got pretty well slated by Bradford fans for saying that Gary Boy should be given a bit more time. I mean,
you did the same with Dino, though, didn't you?
I did say what, mate?
You said the same about Dino Mario.
I did. I said Dino needs his time. I mean, to be fair, speaking with Dino, he just, he knew that he needed the window to change how he wanted the squad to play, because he didn't have the players to do it. He seems to have done well there. I'm not so confident now with Bradford, because they lost Vaughan, they lost Doyle. Palmer obviously was recalled by Rotherham and sent out to Swindon. They brought in Lee Novak, who hasn't been particularly great for Scunthorpe this season and has had a couple of injuries as well. He's a good striker at this level, don't get me wrong. And they are on a run now, I think, of 7 games without a win, although they've only lost 3 in 13 or so. So it's not...
They renewed Chris Taylor's contract, didn't they, for a further 6 months, was it?
Curtis Guthrie's come in as well from Stevenage.
That's the other one. That's the one I thought. He wasn't available to play yesterday due to, obviously, the late registration of that. But come on then, let's go with Ed for this one, because I've said my piece about Bowyer in my article. You can read it on the sack race. But what do you think of this? Fans calling for Bowyer's head, is that fair, or do we think there's wider problems going on behind the scenes? What's your take on it?
I think the problem he's got is that the size of the club he's at. You're talking about one of the biggest teams in the division, where honestly anything, the playoffs is probably the absolute minimum expectation this season for a club that honestly, based on its size and its history, should not be in this division anyway. And it's that transfer window I think that's annoyed people most. Losing Vaughan, I believe it was issues off the field that led to him leaving anyway. Doyle obviously was begging every day to go back to Swindon, is what I've heard.
Yeah.
He was begging to go. And then you bring in Novak, who's all right, but then Guthrie, who's from Stevenage. And that, in the fans' eyes, is a real lack of ambition from the manager, or almost seen as in a bit, well, we need a striker, let's just go and get whatever we can. And you bring in Curtis Guthrie.
Yeah, it's bizarre, that one.
A very weird one.
He did score lots of goals, to be fair to Guthrie, for Stevenage last season.
He did, but I think Bradford fans are looking at it mainly as where he's come from. I think that's their problem with it. You know, they're wanting to get back into League One and they're bringing in a guy. I think the main problem
Bradford fans have is performances as well. I think
when it was so poor yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. I mean, you know, yes, they've lost 3 in 15 or 13 games. Fine. That's not a hugely devastating record in itself, but the performances in that time, and to be fair, when I've watched them this season, they've been a bit hit and miss. They played well at Colchester. I thought they really did quite they determined performance against a team who were flying at the time in Col U. But, you know, they've lost 3-0 to a Mansfield side who I've not seen anything from this season at all. No. And in fact, Mansfield quickly asset stripping their players out, obviously with Mellis going, with Khan going, with Cook leaving. There's a lot of change going on there. And they lost 3-0. They then clung on to a 1-1 draw at home to Cheltenham. Jamie Devitt getting sent off in his first game back, which is a huge blow because he was out for the Oldham game. He'll be back for Grimsby. He's a great player. Whether he'll have the ability to drag them through, you know. And speaking to Bradford players, as I have, you know, they are fully supportive of Gary Burr, saying he's a terrific manager and they're behind him. So, bearing that in mind, there is a case to say give him a bit more time, but performance-wise, not been great.
Yesterday there was a real. I thought O'Donnell was carrying them at times. Their defence looked really leaky. There was so many stray passes. We were cutting through their defence like butter. I mean, I know we played well, but you expect more from Bradford. It worries me a bit on their behalf, that style of football, because it's not that of a top 7 team at all. It's akin to when we've played middle and lower half table teams.
Yeah, not going so well for them. One team is starting to click for and has been for quite some time. They're up to 3rd. It's Plymouth Argyle. I don't think anyone's shocked to see them suddenly finding their form. They've been absolutely brilliant in the last 6 games, going 5 wins in that time. A 2-2 draw in the midweek game against Crawley, a late equaliser from Ollie Palmer, sort of taking the shine off that one for Plymouth. But they've been on great form, Ed, and you look at the way that they're playing their football, you look at the players that they've brought in, they've got a lovely mix right the way through the team now.
I was listening to a Plymouth fan a little while ago, and what he's mentioned from all he's seen, they can win good, they can win ugly, they can win with 10 men, they can win with 11 men, they can win big, they can win by small amounts, they can win in any needs necessary, and that's what you want for a promotion side. And they showed it again today with that, hanging on for that 10-man win, obviously take an early lead through Tyreek. I'm going to say Backinson, but some people say Bakinson. So I think it's whichever one you prefer with that. I don't know what his name actually prefer. I prefer Backinson as well, but I think Quest said Bakinson last night, which just sounds.
It's possibly right.
Could possibly be. But he got the goal. He got the goal, obviously, and you know they lose Sawyer to what was quite a bad tackle in truth, but they hang on and they get the win from that, and that I believe. Yeah, continues the run, doesn't it? They haven't lost in 6 games now since that Swindon defeat, and they're flying at the table. And they've leapfrogged Exeter as well with that win.
Yes, they have indeed. And they've played 1 game less as well than, at least 1 game less than the 2 teams above
Still
them.
got to play Macclesfield, that rearranged game. So
Of course, yeah, of course. So if they do win, say they won the 2 games in hand they have on Swindon, that would put them on 60 points, so they'd be top of the table. So. But, you know, games in hand are one thing, winning them is another. But you have to say at the moment they've been absolutely flying. And it's not a surprise, brilliant to see. Cambridge sacked Colin Calderwood. I don't think anyone was surprised about that.
No.
But I think everyone was surprised that they beat Colchester United, Ed.
Oh, that was ridiculous. I tweeted about it. Colchester hadn't lost in 16 games. They travelled to a side who had lost their last 2 home games by a 4-0 scoreline. And what was the score? 2-1 Cambridge. Like,
it's why we like this division, isn't it?
I love it. It's just what you love about it, isn't it? And the impact of the subs, Nibs and Dallas. He brings Dallas on. I think about a minute later he equalises, and then Nibs gets the winner a few minutes after that, and then taunts the away fans as well as he celebrates, which is, you know, you do what you please.
Paul Tisdale's name being linked with this job. Do you think they could persuade him to go to Cambridge? Because
that'd be a hell of a coup.
It would be a hell of a coup.
I think there's a travelling factor that plays in that, because I'm not sure where he's living at the minute, but I understand he was travelling a fair bit to get to MK when he was there, and Cambridge is a bit further beyond that, so you're looking at a pretty lengthy round trip each day to get to Cambridge, and probably, I mean, if he does it, he'll do it, but that would be a really...
He won't move to Cambridge. Have you seen the house prices in Cambridge?
No, I suppose.
Yeah,
but no, if they can get him, that's an excellent sign. So what is an okay squad? And, you know, we know how much Tisdale likes building clubs. So
Could do. I find that hard to believe that they'll get him, but he would be.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah,
Cough Grimsby.
Yes. He's starting to get his, a 3-1 win over Stevenage. A good point against Forest Green, who have to say the goal from their what's the name of the chap who scored
Odin Bailey.
Odin Bailey.
Lovely goal.
What a strike.
Lovely.
As well. I mean, really good finish. Forest Green not on a great run though. Really struggling, and the pressure. I do like listening to Mark Cooper interviews when he's struggling because they're quite funny.
It's weird you say that. He doesn't strike me as a person who has any real sense of humour, to be honest. I think you've had a couple of times listened to interviews where the reporters have tried to have a little bit of laugh with him. He's like, yeah, okay.
Are they usually funny though?
Yeah. I don't know. I think he's just not really enjoying how the form they're on the minute. That team, Forest Green, had a flying start to the season, didn't they? Top of the table at one point.
The data, I remember we talked about the data showed that they were well overperforming the data, and it kind of now seems that it's caught up with them a bit.
Yeah, but even still.
They've got a good squad. They have got a good squad, and they spend money on that squad. They should be a playoff team in my eyes.
I agree with them. I agree.
Yeah, I think they should be, but they're really not performing at the moment. I think they've only won one of the last 7 games, losing 4 of them, conceding left, right, and centre after what was a very solid defensive performance in the first few games of the season, first half of the season. So, they've really struggled. Scunthorpe United, must talk about them because they sacked Paul Hurst, and I couldn't find a fan online who agreed with that decision.
Weird timing.
It's weird timing, and it's sent to come out, right at the end of the window, exactly. It's sent to come out that the reason for the sacking was not football related. It was a breakdown in the relationship between Chairman Peter Swan and Paul Hurst. And
okay.
So the chairman's maybe had some questions about him, let him spend his money, then they've had a big argument and he's gone.
I'm not sure how much of that recruitment that went through really Paul Hurst won. I mean, Paul Hurst has got, Scunthorpe have the second highest budget, according to their chairman, in the division.
I can't believe that.
And he
really?
was asked, apparently, well, they're paying a lot of money. I wonder what Van Veen is on. You've got James Perch in there. You've got...
But really, they're paying more than Swindon, Plymouth, Bradford,
Plymouth
Salford.
Don't have a big budget. You'd be surprised, I think, at Plymouth's budget. Because they've got big crowds, people think they're spending more than others. Actually, that squad, I don't have the exact position in the table, but there are several teams paying or spending more on wages this season than Plymouth Argyle. I don't know who's top. I would imagine Mansfield.
Salford.
Maybe Salford.
Yeah, I think it would be Salford, yeah.
They must be paying James Wilson some money.
They're paying Bruno Andrade some money and then some money on top of that, I tell you.
They wanted $5,000 a week for Will Grigg, didn't they?
They were happy to pay it as well.
Yeah, that's what they wanted to pay, yeah.
Well, according to sources that I've spoken to, Bruno Andrade's on more than that. So, ridiculous amount of money that they're...
Well, they get big crowds,
Yes, they do. Oh, yeah, they've got great history, that team. Fairy Tale Rise, actually, through the...
Yeah, Fairy Tale Rise, yeah. So those Sky Sports coming.
Oh, no.
Please make that laugh again. That was brilliant.
I'm not doing that laugh again. No.
Maybe we'll send it a tape of that laugh to Mark Cooper.
On a loop. Can I make it? I want it to be my ringtone.
You're getting weird now, Chris. So Scunthorpe sacking Paul Hurst. I don't know where they're going to go with this next. There was a chat scheduled for today whether they're going to make Russ Wilcox permanently their manager. I find that hard to believe because he was sacked by Peter Swan before, so maybe that's not going to be a good thing. But they've got to get rid of some of their players. You'll watch this summer. I think they'll shed quite a lot of that wage budget. They kept Van Veen, which I was surprised about in the January window. I thought he'd go. They brought in a few players, young players. I think that's where the chairman wants his team to look now, is bringing through youth development. Ryan Colclough kind of frozen out under Hurst, and I think Hurst probably promised to reduce the budget and didn't. And from what I've read, it seems there was literally no way of this relationship going back in a positive direction. So the chairman made the decision, and his team are on a dreadful run. They've had a dreadful season with injuries, and I think the sooner 1920 is gone for Scunthorpe fans, the better, really. They should have enough to stay up. I think, looking at Stevenage, they're really, really struggling. So we have to wait and see how their season pans out. But Colchester on a good run, Stevenage on a poor run, Leyton Orient thrashing Stevenage, and they've been pretty dreadful this season as well, for a multitude of reasons, to be fair. But I mean, do we, Ed, see Stevenage surviving? It's got to be them or Morecambe, really. I don't see anyone else being particularly pulled into this.
I think it is a dogfight between those two, but you cannot rule out Macclesfield just with the situation off the pitch at the minute. And that's a sad thing to say, and they've obviously, we'll get on Macclesfield a bit, but it does look like at the minute it's going to be a dogfight between Stevenage and Morecambe signings are making a telling impact, particularly Adam Phillips, who's the centre midfielder who's coming from Burnley. And I think in 6 games he's got 3 goals and 3 assists from central midfield, which is a phenomenal impact for any player. And then
they got Harvey Bradbury as well, who added some physicality up front.
Yes.
Still a lot to prove, that young man, but
Carlos Mendes Gomez has emerged as well, which is looking really good.
Yeah, he's live
wide positions. He's looked very good.
Yeah, he is, and I think so. So for them, there's positives. Stevenage, I can't really find any at the moment.
There doesn't look to be the desire to stay up, even if there's no quality. That's what worries me most about Stevenage. You see teams that aren't good enough, but they'll fight till the end, and I don't see that from them.
Well, Chris Beach has certainly got a tune out of Cheltenham. I thought he did some good business in the window, considering he lost Branthwaite and Hope. He did make some good signings. I think the chap on loan from Wolves has been excellent in midfield.
Elliot Watt.
Yeah,
Elliot Watt's been excellent. Really
I think he's looked really good. I think as well, you just look at the fight that they've had. They were 2-0 down yesterday against Mansfield, and they came back again and put in a good performance. And that is, and they beat Forest Green 4-1 at Forest Green in midweek with Thomas getting a hat trick. So really some positive signs from Carlisle. And
it is strange looking at the bottom few, sort of from 19th down. You take Morecambe out of that. I've seen all those teams in League One in the last few years.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's an interesting looking table, really. But at the end of the day, you're looking at a team 4 points adrift at the moment with Stevenage. I can't see. Mansfield in 22nd is outrageous. They're obviously making some decisions now about getting rid of some high earners, with Otis Khan going to Newport, who I think will be a good signing under Mike Flynn.
They may as well shed that money at this point. They spent so much money in the hope of a promotion push, and that's not happening.
No, one team we haven't spoken about as we're running out of time now, but it's Northampton. I think they've been excellent.
Yeah,
I think very solid team. Good manager who knows the level well. Fairly settled lineup. Verdane Oliver's been brilliant of late. There's so much to like about Northampton. I think in the league they haven't lost since December, since the Boxing Day defeat at Crawley, and they've done well in the cups. They've got 2 home games coming up against Port Vale and Swindon, which will be. That Swindon game will be interesting because you can see this one being a sort of banana skin for Swindon in their quest for promotion. So that one will be definitely worth keeping an eye on. But I do really like what Northampton have done so far. Macclesfield, like you said, Ed, there's a lot off the field going on, but they're showing a hell of a lot of fight on it under Mark Kennedy. So huge credit to them. Walsall, they continue to just be meh, don't they? They win a game, they lose a game. They don't have any consistency. Darryl Clark has the appearance of a man who's literally walking around with the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Yeah.
and they lost yesterday to Crewe despite taking the lead. Crewe, on the other hand, especially at home, are flying. They've struggled a bit on the road.
I can't believe their form's going to go to pot next week.
Oh dear, Chris. Baby steps, my friend. Baby steps. You know.
I'll tell you what. If we have a repeat, do you remember the game at Crewe last year, Chris, when Peter Clark scored that screamer? Repeat of that. How about repeat of that from David Wheater?
David Wheater.
How about that?
Or Persiani.
I would love that. Either of them, that'd be fantastic.
It would be good, wouldn't it? Well, actually, we do have Crewe listeners. It wouldn't be good for Crewe listeners.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry,
David
guys.
Wheater do that. But I mean, I love Crewe. I think they played a bench in the game, I think, against Leyton Orient, wasn't it? Where it's all academy players. This deserves a tweet thread, Crewe. I mean, just the way they do their business, the way they bring through young players, absolutely superb. They're on another decent run of form now where they've won, I think, 4 or 5, is it? I won 4 straight at home, not lost in 5 in the league. And they've suddenly found their mojo again. So really impressed with them, and they're flying. Second in the table as it stands. Just there's a 4-point gap between them and Swindon, but they've got that game in hand. So
yes,
we shall see. Let's give you the table before we do run completely out of time. And Swindon are top, 59 points from their 31 games. Crewe second, 55 from 30. Plymouth 54 from 29, so like we say, win those games in hand and they'll be top of the pile. Exeter 30 games played, 54 points. Northampton, Colchester and Cheltenham all making up the playoff places. Bradford falling out of the playoff places for the first time in some time this season. I think 47 points though at this moment. The gap's opening up a little bit, but they should really make a decision. I mean, they need to make a decision on Bowyer. I think fans are disgruntled. Whether or not the board feel the same way, or the players indeed feel the same way, remains to be seen. Oldham, nowhere near the playoffs, and we shall leave it at that. Stevenage, 22 points from 31 games, sitting bottom, 4-point gap between them and Morecambe. But like Ed suggested, Macclesfield's situation could become a whole lot worse before the end of the season. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. It's been great to be back.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes. Yeah, thanks for having us. Loved it.
Yeah.
I completely zoned out then, sorry.
Yeah, me too. I was looking at the league table thinking,
Same here.
Who's getting involved in it?
My co-host deserting me there. Never mind, it's good.
It's a protest, James.
Protest, yeah. Late cancellations, they don't like it, you see. They've done
Last minute walkout.
Ed, before we go, Ed, you wanted to say something last week, and unfortunately we couldn't get it through with the podcast being cancelled, about the lack of League 1 and 2 matches on TV. So I'm going to let you end this podcast with a whinge.
Right, we're going to end with a rant, are we? Okay. So about a couple of weeks ago, Sky announced their latest EFL fixtures.
Were Leeds on there by any chance, Ed?
Of course they were. And as always, it's almost all Championship. I think there was one League One game, and I believe it was Coventry Sunderland.
Oh, it's had Sunderland in that League One game.
Yes, it did, yeah.
That's amazing.
And basically,
so underrepresented.
If you haven't got an idea by now, we're fed up. I mean, Sky call themselves the home of the EFL. They're not. They're the home of the Championship, and then a couple of League One clubs tend to be the bigger clubs, as you'd like to say. And it's just, you pride yourself, and apparently I understand they're contracted to do 20 League 1 and League 2 games over the course of the season. It does not feel like that many. I think there's been one League 2 game this season, which I believe was Salford Stevenage at the start of the season. Don't bet me on that.
Salford?
There might have been.
Oh yeah, well they've got they're a big global brand, aren't they?
Yeah, no, it's the
haven't they got Sky Bet as their sponsor?
It's the Fairy Tale.
Yeah.
Isn't Sky Bet their shirt sponsor as well?
I'm sure it's nothing to do with that, Ed. I'm sure it's nothing to do with that.
I'm sure. But yeah, like, if you're not going to care for the 3rd and 4th division, why are you going to keep the rights?
Let someone else do it.
Let's have someone else do it. I mean, Quest did a highlight show.
Let's crowdfund and get a D3D4 channel.
Let's do it.
How much do we need for the rights? How much does anyone know? 600 million?
James, do you really think we could do the commentary on this?
Oh, look how good we are on a podcast. You know, it's not like we zone out or anything like that. We'd be great. You can imagine, we'd be completely unbiased, you know. And Oxford United get the ball, and they're coming. The other team's got the ball. I hate Brentford.
Can you imagine me commentating on an Oldham game?
I was going to say Chris on an Oldham game. That'd be quite fun.
Go on. I mean, that's a fantastic piece of play. Lovely football.
Crazy. But you're right, absolutely right. No representation of League 1 and 2 football. And actually, I was thinking the games that they played last season were fantastic. Bury v Lincoln was at 3-3, and wasn't it Oldham v Mansfield? What was that? 3-2.
They did Lincoln Mansfield as well. I was at that game. Yeah. Mansfield Lincoln. Sorry, it was a 1-1 draw on a Monday night. And Lincoln, obviously being top of the league, they brought good over 1,000. They were brilliant.
That was when Mellis scored that nice equaliser in the 90th minute or something, wasn't it?
And they picked the Oldham game when Paul Scholes got the job, and then obviously resigned before the game got shown on TV.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't say for some sort of technical reason they've had to cancel playing that game. But dear oh dear, we're annoyed about that, and I think to put the jokes aside, it's a disgrace, really.
It really is.
The EFL. If you're going to pay for the rights to the EFL and you're contracted to have a certain number of games from League 1 and 2, and then you don't do it, I mean. The EFL, a lot of people will champion Sky because they have lots of these little shows where they do discuss League 1 and 2 as a side note. Do me a favour, that's not covering League 1 and 2.
No.
It's a joke. I mean, do the rights have to be for the entire EFL? Can you just take the rights for the Championship?
I imagine they've got the rights for the whole EFL, but they only really care about the Championship.
But is it possible to split them up in terms of TV rights?
It's not at the moment, as far as I know. I think they sell them the EFL sell it as a complete package, which, the top teams in the Championship are not happy about it because they think they can get a better deal. So it's...
Well, the Premier League thought, wasn't it? And then they split off.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway, we've run out of time, I'm afraid, guys, but, I'd love for everyone to get involved in this debate. Maybe, we could think of a way that in the future League 1 and 2 should be shown more regularly on TV. It's definitely deserved it. The football is good quality. The drama and the stories that you get at this level of football are excellent. I hope you've enjoyed listening to us today, despite our rants and our faux pas and our sort of passionate opinions. But until next week, from all of us, take care, everyone, and goodbye.